Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into the crypto market again. It's been pretty interesting lately. Kind of contradictory, actually. We've got a bunch of recent articles here from CoinMarketCap, and the plan is, to sift through them, pull out the key bits, and try to make sense of what's actually happening. Bitcoin, market moves, altcoins, the usual suspects.
Yeah, and looking at these sources, what really jumps out first is this tension, like you've got one headline talking about key signals for an explosive surge for Bitcoin. Sounds great, right? Based on Glassnode data. But then literally right next to it, you see another piece mentioning a Bitcoin bear market scenario. And apparently that idea is provoking analyst skepticism. Plus, you hear corporate adoption is maybe just beginning, which sounds like a long-term positive, but then bam, the market takes a hit at downturn, and it's tied directly to like traditional finance stuff.
It really is a market getting pulled every which way, isn't it? You've got these internal crypto signals suggesting, potential good news,
Yeah.
like underlying activity looking strong, maybe some big players, institutions starting to dip their toes in more seriously. But then you absolutely cannot ignore the immediate hit from outside forces, stuff totally separate from crypto. So yeah, our goal here is to get down and navigate all that, look at the different angles the sources give us, see what forces are really pushing and pulling, and figure out what the overall picture looks like when you put it all together. What's grabbing your attention first from those headlines?
It's just that clash, you know? Signal saying up, reality saying down, and then TradFi landing punches. Okay, yeah, let's unpack this. Let's start with
Right.
Bitcoin. So one report, and it mentions Glassnode specifically, an on-chain analytics firm. It says there are key signals for an explosive surge in Bitcoin's price. I mean, that sounds like big news.
It does. And mentioning Glassnode is key because, on-chain analytics, they look right at the blockchain activity itself. It's not just price charts. It's things like active wallets, how much is moving around, what miners are doing, that kind of stuff. Sometimes it shows you trends before they really hit the price. Now, this source doesn't spell out which signals Glassnode is seeing, but just mentioning it suggests the network's, let's say, internal health might be pointing upwards pretty significantly, perhaps.
Okay, but then the whiplash. Another headline we pulled talks about a Bitcoin bear market scenario and specifically says it's provoking analyst skepticism.
Right. And seeing those two things basically side by side,
Mm.
it just perfectly captures the uncertainty right now, doesn't it? It's not just that the market's choppy. It's that different ways of looking at it seem to give you opposite answers.
Yeah.
The fact that a bear market idea is specifically drawing skepticism, well, that tells you something too. It suggests that while some definitely see downside risks, others are actively pushing back, doubting that scenario is likely right now. So yeah, the signals are fragmented. Makes it really tough to just pick one view and say that's it.
Okay. Okay, let's shift gears a bit because this next point it feels more fundamental, maybe connecting to that longer term view. There's this interview from Juneteenth cited in one source with the Bitwise CIO, Matt Hogan, and he apparently said corporate Bitcoin adoption is, quote, just beginning.
Yeah, and this is potentially huge. It speaks to a whole different kind of demand, maybe a more stable long-term one. Hugin's point, as reported, seems to be that this isn't something that's already happened. It's really early days. And the driver, he suggests, well, it's interesting. It's that maybe traditional ways companies hold cash aren't working so well anymore. Inflation, low interest rates, that sort of thing. So this isn't just speculation we're talking about. It could be companies actually looking for a better place to park their treasury funds.
Right.
And that really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If this really takes off, what kind of impact could all those corporate balance sheets eventually have on the market?
That's definitely a long-term thought. But let's look at the here and now, the immediate reality. One source really highlighted a broad market downturn just today. It reported the total crypto market cap dropped 1.68% down to $3.39 trillion. And daily trading volume also dipped 5.27% down to about $133.81 billion.
Right, and that gives us the hard numbers on the recent hit.
Mm.
But critically, that source ties the panic specifically to slides in traditional markets. It mentions the DGCT, the S&P 500, NASDAQ, major stock indices. When those take a dive, it often triggers selling everywhere, crypto included. So this is like a perfect example, according to this source, of how those big macro forces, external factors, just background noise, they could directly cause drops in crypto. Shows how linked everything's become, really.
Yeah, the old saying, traditional markets sneeze, crypto catches a cold, seems like it. So while all that's going on, what about the altcoins? Amidst the Bitcoin back and forth and this macro pressure, one source actually asked the question, is altcoin season 2025 around the corner? It talks about the altcoin season index, the one tracking how many alts are beating Bitcoin over 90 days. And it says, key indicators signal potential breakout.
That altcoin season index.
Mm.
Yeah, a lot of people watch that metric. And this report suggesting a potential breakout is interesting. It hints that even if the whole market is feeling the pressure from, say, the stock market dip, the conditions within the altcoin space might be shifting. They could potentially start outperforming Bitcoin again, relatively speaking. Even if the tide is going out for everyone, some boats might still rise faster than others. The source doesn't say which indicators are flashing, but just hearing about that signal is definitely noteworthy if you're watching alts.
Okay, and diving into some specific examples we saw. One source puts BlockDAG, XLM, that's Stellar, and AVX Avalanche in the spotlight. It pays special attention to BlockDAG, notes it raised a huge amount, $298 million, saw record-breaking buyer battles, whatever that means exactly, priced at 0.001 cent. And get this, a reported 2,678% ROI. Calls it a top pick.
Wow, yeah, $298 million.
Yeah.
That's a very serious raise for any project, especially in crypto. Suggests a ton of early belief, or at least appetite, from investors. And record-breaking buyer battles.
Yeah, that likely refers to really high demand during their pre-sale or initial offering, often seen as a bullish sign for how it might perform when it launches properly. Now, that source didn't give as much detail on what XLM or AVX are doing right now, but those BlockDAG numbers, they give you a concrete example. They show that even when the overall market's down because of macro stuff, you can still see individual projects generating massive hype and, apparently, returns. Growth is still happening in pockets.
Right, pockets of activity. And then another source gives us a little window into project development. Hello Labs apparently unveils major token economy upgrades. Oh, okay. This shows the building doesn't stop, right? Regardless of daily price action. So the source says Hello Labs brought in a burn and earn model and a deflationary structure. These are tokenomic strategies. The idea is usually to reduce the total supply over time, make the token scarcer, potentially more valuable, and they also added a multi-chain bridge. That basically makes their token usable on different blockchains, increases accessibility, potential uses, makes it easier for people to actually interact with it. So yeah, it shows projects are still working on fundamentals, trying to strengthen the long-term value prop of their tokens. It all adds to that dynamic picture in the altcoin space.
Okay, so we've kind of walked through this whole landscape, haven't we? The conflicting Bitcoin signals on-chain versus maybe market sentiment. That quiet but maybe huge corporate interest bubbling up. Then the very real immediate slap from traditional market dips, signs that maybe altcoins could have their moment soon, and specific projects like BlockDAG raising massive money and Hello Labs upgrading their tech. Putting all these pieces together, if you're trying to get a quick handle on things, what are the main takeaways for you?
Well, what really stands out from pulling these sources together is this picture of tension. Yeah, tension is the right word. On one side, you've got forces inside crypto. Things like the Glassnode data hinting at network strength, the corporate adoption narrative suggesting new long-term demand, those altcoin indicators potentially signaling a cycle shift, and projects actively building and improving. These things suggest potential for growth, for positive movement coming from within the crypto ecosystem itself. But then on the other side, you have these really powerful external forces, macroeconomics, like we saw with the stock market slide apparently triggering this recent crypto dip. These can have immediate significant negative impacts. So I think the big takeaway is understanding that these two sets of forces, internal crypto dynamics and external macro pressures, are constantly interacting. Sometimes they pull in the same direction, sometimes they clash directly. And seeing how they play off each other is just crucial for making sense of the market right now.
That really sums it up well. It's been a fascinating deep dive looking at these recent headlines. We saw that stark contrast, didn't we? Bitcoin surge signals versus bear market talk. Then the maybe slower burn of corporate adoption starting. The very clear punch from traditional market downturns recently. Hints of an altcoin season maybe brewing. And yeah, specific projects making moves, BlockDAG huge raise, Hello Labs token upgrades.
Definitely. It's clear the market's direction isn't going to be simple. It's being shaped by this really complex mix of internal signals, institutional shifts, and those big external macro pressures.
Which leaves us with a pretty compelling question, pulling directly from what we just discussed from the sources. We saw that external market slides triggered the recent crypto downturn, according to one source. But we also saw sources pointing to potentially bullish Glassnode signals, growing corporate interest, and maybe altcoin breakouts on the horizon. So the question for you to think about is, which force wins out in the near future? Will it be the internal crypto dynamics, the tech, the adoption, the cycles, or will it be the ripples, positive or negative, coming from traditional finance and the wider economy? What does that ongoing tension tell you about how to approach this space? Something to definitely keep mulling over as you watch how these different factors play out.